Welcome to the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Pluff. Each week, we will cover various topics that dads struggle with in their fitness journey. I'll give you actionable steps that you can apply right away, not only to take back control of your own health, but so you're able to be a better example for your kids too. All right, welcome in to this week's episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Today, we have Ren Jones with us. Ren is someone I have gotten to know over the past few years. He's an incredible coach. So at the end of the show, I'll have him share all his social media and everything. But he has helped me in my own business as well, helped me become a better coach as well. So this is really fun for me to have him on here today. So I'm going to have him introduce himself, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, man. First of all, happy to be here, Anthony. And when we first got on the rip, we're using the app for the podcast. When we first got on, it's visual, sort of like a Zoom type thing. And Anthony and I spent like years talking to each other on Zoom because we were talking about the coaching business. So when we got on, I was like, man, this feels like it's a coaching call. So I just started talking, running my mouth, and I was like, man, this is your podcast, bro. I'm going to be quiet. So. No telling what's going to happen here, man, because we're probably way too familiar with each other to be trusted to do a podcast together. So calamity is going to ensue. But for those that don't know me, my name is Ren Jones, and I work with the opposite of the population that Anthony works with because I work with moms over 30. So I've been a trainer for about 10 years or so, online specifically. I got into this business through tragedy. I always like to tell that story. I won't talk about it yet because Anthony might want me to talk about it purposely. So I'll say that I work with moms over 30. Anthony reached out and was like, hey, let's have a chat about like sort of how spouses can support each other. He's like, you work from the mom side, I work with the dad side. So in any case, I'm happy to be here. I do online training, corrective exercise, nutrition, blah, 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 yada yada, all the boring stuff that nobody really wants to hear about from me. That was probably the worst introduction of myself I've ever given. But again, I'm so comfortable with Anthony, like I can't do it any other way. So was that a good answer? Is that okay?
That's good. No,
All right, perfect.
no. Yeah. So you work with moms. Yeah, I wanted to have you on because um, it's a lot of coaches in the industry, work with similar populations like them,
Mm-hmm.
right? I obviously work with dads. I'm a dad, and so I feel like I can relate, right? I feel like I can relate, and I've had some other great coaches on the show as well who work with moms, who work with parents, who work with women in general. But I feel like you're a very unique situation here, right? You specifically work with moms over 30. I work with dads over, so I felt like that this is perfect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, kind of like you mentioned there. I mean, I know you've shared with me before, and anybody who follows you kind of knows kind of how you got into this. But for those that don't, how did you kind of settle on working with moms?
Yeah, so this is a story that I always tell, even though it's a tragic story, because I think it's important for people to understand. Because let's be honest here, like when you hear about a personal trainer that works specifically with women, you don't get a lot of good images in your mind. Let's just call it out, right?
Yeah.
You're thinking sort of Rico Suave. Sure. I bet you work with moms, Ren. But that's not the reason for me. Unfortunately, when I was 33 ish, my older brother had a heart attack and died suddenly. And that sort of shook things up for me, right? I was working in a corporate environment then. And my brother was 17 years older than me. I was the surprise baby, the baby of the household I grew up in, at least. Um, and that makes you think about a lot of things. If, to all the folks out there who have lost anybody, it shifts your life. But if you lost a sibling, it's so close to you that it just puts you in this weird space. So I kept going along doing my corporate job. And about 4 years later, exactly, my older sister died. Now, my sister died from addiction, really. She drank and got in a car, had a single car accident, hit a tree, and died instantly. Ironically, they were both 50 years old when they died because they were 4 years apart. I'm 49, by the way, so I don't want you to not think that doesn't play it out in my head all the time. But my sister died in a car accident. My mother was previously disabled due to a stroke. Another thing that put me in this spot, she had a stroke, a massive stroke, when I think I was maybe a junior in college. And for 17 years of her life until she finally passed away, um, which was a few years after my sister and brother had died, for 17 years of her life, she was disabled due to those stroke conditions, right? She couldn't give herself care. She lost her independence. Um, and it was a slow dwindling of independence that I witnessed with my mother, which again, that really does something to you. It informs you in a way, because in each of those cases with each of those family members, I always feel like none of that had to happen. There were lifestyle related issues. My mother was a heavy smoker. I'm from Winston-Salem, which is one of the world's tobacco capitals, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. If you've heard of Winston cigarettes or Salem cigarettes or Camel cigarettes, all that stuff is R.J. Reynolds based and is from the hometown that I'm from. And in my mother's era, and I don't want to get too much of a tangent, but in my mother's era, smoking was a lot like drinking is now, I guess. My mom went to college in the 50s. I know that's blowing the minds of the millennials and the zennials and Gen Z. But that I'm 49, so I'm an old person who was born late to an older mother. But in any case, they gave them like cigarette packets in their college welcome kit, right? Like tobacco owned everything in the state. So that industry made sure that young people smoked. And my mother smoked for years, man. In any case, the reality is I had to give my mother care, and I had to put her into a nursing facility, which broke my heart, man. Like every time I left from visiting her, knowing that all of her other children had passed on, man, I cried like a baby every time I left. So literally, Anthony, I'm sitting there at a bedside one day, and a commercial for NASM comes on, National Academy of Sports Medicine, right? And it was like a television sitcom because like the commercial was talking to me. The commercial was like, "Are you in a job that you hate?" I was like, "Yeah." And it's like, "Do you love fitness?" I was like, "I do love fitness." Now, have you ever considered being a trainer? I was like, "Well, yes." NASM commercial. I had considered becoming a trainer, but are you concerned about the money required? I was like, "Yeah," because I'm kind of broke right now. It's like, well, NASM has a new program. You can pay overtime. Call the 1-800 number. Blah blah blah. Dude, I called the number from her bedside. Right, I called that day, and my mother probably lived for 6 more months after that. So I would study at her bedside. Eventually, she passed away in February of 2014, February 21st. March 17th, I took my NASM test. It was a proctored exam, which means I had to take it at a facility. Took my test, passed it, cried all the way home. And then April, I turned 40. So I came into this business at 40, man. And ever since then, I've sort of had a knack for communicating with women. I was raised in a house with three women: my grandmother, my mother, my older sister. My brother was already in college at that point. My dad lived somewhere else, even though I've got a great relationship with him. He and my mom just didn't stay married long. Shout out to Reverend Donald L. Jones, Pastor Jones, doctor, because he's got a doctorate in theology. But yeah, so that led me to work specifically with women, understanding the loss of a sister and how that impacts you, understanding the loss of a mom. My little sister died in 2020, similar situations, addiction, and what we think an interaction with alcohol and medication, right? So, sort of ever since probably, let's see, 2016 ish, I've been solely focused on working with moms over 30. That's my story, man, and I'm sticking to it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you sharing. It's not really like when you find a trainer online, somebody comes across your page, all they really see is, I work with moms over
Right.
30, right? And unless they take the time to get to know you, unless they take the time to hang out on your page for a while, like
Yeah.
a lot of people don't know that, right? And it's
Right.
like, I know for me personally, like like if my wife was looking for a coach, I probably wouldn't find the first guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like he helps moms over there. You're like, oh, like I'm gonna sign her up for this. You know what I mean? And
right.
so it's like I think having having that reasoning and being open about that.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool. And I know like obviously you've helped tons of moms, tons of women over the years. What was the what would you say is like kind of the hardest thing about like getting started with that? Like how did
Oh,
like for me, like even though I am a dad, when I started, when I kind of realized like this is who I want to help with, I had some of that like, am I qualified for this? Like I was a
yeah,
dad, I was a coach, I had tons of credentials, but I still didn't feel like qualified and stuff. And so how did you kind of build up that reputation in order to to earn their trust?
man, that's such a good question. Um, and you're right, man. Here's what people kind of don't realize about good coaches. Pretty much every coach that's a good coach, a worthwhile human, is dealing at certain points with imposter syndrome,
Mm,
right? The only truly confident coaches are probably the ones that are scamming people. They're always confident, right?
yeah.
They don't care whether or not they actually help you. They're supremely confident. Um, and like Anthony just said, man, I'm working in a place where I don't exist, right? Because full disclosure, I'm not a mom, just for folks out there wondering. Secondary to that, I'm not even a parent, right?
Mm,
I don't even have any kids. So I'm way outside of my demographic. Um, and the first thing I had to do was apply humility to my journey as a business person and a coach.
mhm,
Because when you're operating in a space where you don't have experience, and by experience, I mean the experience of being a mother. Like, I don't have that experience. I'm never going to have it. When you're operating in a place where you don't have an experience for yourself, you're going to be wrong a lot,
yeah.
right? You're going to assume incorrectly a whole lot of the time, and you have to be willing to take the correction that these women are going to apply to you, because they're going to let you know when you said the wrong thing, when
Mhm,
you presented something the wrong way. And one of the first things I remember, man, is me saying the word female. Some type of post I wrote, I said, blah, 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 females, blah, blah, blah. And a few women luckily inboxed me and they said, a female what? And I didn't understand the question really. And what they taught me was that female is a sex assignment, right? It doesn't mean a human. Could be a female cat. It could be,
mhm,
and it's a slight verbiage. And most people didn't bother them at all, right? So they weren't bothered by that. They knew what I meant. But you learn when you're operating in a space that's a space that you don't exist in,
mhm,
to be willing to be taught better how to operate in that space, man. And if you don't have humility, like it's over. Curtains, it's curtains for you. Like, you don't have a shot, man. So really, the first thing I did was I started diving into spaces where my clientele exists in an effort to better understand them. So I start following influencers like Brene Brown, who a lot of the dads probably never heard of. People like Mel Robbins, again, a lot of the dads probably never heard of. Um, People like obviously Oprah Winfrey, you've heard of her, but all of these, and then I start reading books, right? I start reading books that are women written books for women and lifestyle, and all the things that women go through, because I really wanted to be very informed. I became a college scout, or no, probably better, I became a professional scout for my team, and learn what to look at and judge and understand in order to develop a better system of making myself the recruit, right? Um,
mhm,
and that took a lot of time, man, and it took a lot of lumps and bumps and errors and correction, sometimes very public correction. But I was here for it. Mainly, I was able to be humble because of what I've been through and that trauma and that grief of losing women in my family and my brother as well. I don't want to disregard that, but losing women in my family and on the internet, it's easy to see women falling prey to those same types of nonsensical methods, things that aren't going to lead them to better health, right?
Yeah.
But it might make them skinny for a month, right? So the mission allows me to be humble, the humility allows me to learn, and the information allows me to be empathetic. And that's really what I had to go through, man, for years. And dude, I'm still learning, right? I'm still messing it up, but I'm
Yeah.
willing to mess it up in order to be able to be put in a position where I can help save these women's lives, or even make their lives better. The one shot they got at existence.
Right.
That was a long answer, but I felt like I said good stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe I didn't mean
Yeah.
to, but I feel like I did.
Yeah. No, I think it shows, like, even, just in the time, like, we spent working together, like, I can see your passion, like
Yeah,
I understand. So I know your clients do too, like, obviously being able, just like taking the time to understand, right? And that, I think that
yeah.
leads in really well into, like, why I wanted you on here today. And I've talked a lot about it, so I won't go too far into it now. But um, I've always said, like, I've got three kids.
Hmm.
I've got three. I had three kids under 4 years old. My son just turned
Right.
4, and so all very quickly. And so when my son was first born, you don't know, like, you have no idea you can read all the books in the world, but when they arrive, you have no idea what you're doing, right? You think you have a game plan to, like, who was it? Mike Tyson.
Yeah,
You have a plan, you get punched in the face, and
yeah,
everybody's got a plan, so you get punched in the face. That's parenting, right? That's every day. You think you plan your workout, and all of a sudden, like, the past 2 days, my son's been up at 5:45. Like, why? What are you up
right,
at 5:45 for, right?
right.
And so, like, I've been very open about it. Like, I wasn't good about, one, taking care of myself, and like, I
Right.
feel like I've talked about, like, feeling kind of guilty and stuff. Like, you feel guilty taking time away, but then,
Yeah.
two, when I did start to get back into, like, a routine, back into a workout routine, I was very bad at allowing my wife get her workouts in. I knew, like,
Yes.
I was gone at work all day. At the time, I wasn't working from home. I was gone at work. I'd come home, spend some time with them, and then I was like, okay, I need to go get my workout
Hmm.
in. And um, I never really took the time to understand that, like, she's up in the middle of the night feeding the baby, right?
Yes.
Because, like, I can't provide those services, and
Right.
it's like,
Right.
um, so, and then, like, and like, now I have three. I actually work out more than I
Hmm.
did with one kid,
Yeah.
and so does my wife, because,
Right.
like, I learn from some of this. But I think you talked a lot about empathy there, and just kind of
Yeah.
understanding the situation. Like, I know for me, and I'm gonna speak, for myself, and I'm gonna speak for a lot of the dads I work with.
Hmm.
We're not great at being considerate at times. not
Right.
not not saying we're not considerate people, but
Right.
a lot of times we put ourselves first. This is
Yeah.
my workout. This is where I'm scheduling my workout. I need to get 3 workouts in a week instead of maybe 2, and let my wife get 2. And so,
Right.
obviously, you work with moms. I'm sure at least some of them are married, right? And so,
Yeah.
like, you
Majority.
have experience. Yeah, you have experience working with clients who, their spouse may or may not support them, right? So, maybe
Yes.
maybe that's part of the reason they
Hmm.
came to you, right? And so, what I really want to talk to you today is about, like, how can myself as a dad, and other dads listening, kind of do a better job at, making this, making fitness, making nutrition, making a healthy lifestyle a family thing, and not just kind of an individual journey.
Oh man, I got tips for this for sure. And you're absolutely right because I exist on the other side of this inconvenience, right? Um, I'm always because I rarely if ever have conversations with the dads, right?
Hmm.
But I'm always talking to the moms about their just the I think what they call it in stress and recovery is the allostatic load, right? Just and that just means all the things that are on a human's shoulders in the
Hmm.
course of a day. And For a mom, it's infinite, right? Like it's a it's a long train tunnel with no opening that can be seen at any point. Like that's what it's like. And so the first thing, if I was giving actionable tips, the first thing I would say, on the dad side, is be willing to have the conversation and or be inquisitive about the situation, right? Because I'll get moms. One of the things that I do for my clients, again, just to refresh, I'm online only. So one of the things I do for my clients is when I send them a welcome kit, I send them a whiteboard that they can. It's magnetic. It's just like a looks like a fruit roll up. You take it out of a canister. For those that know what a fruit roll up is, I dated myself there. But it's just rolled up, and you unroll it and stick it right on your refrigerator, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
reason that I give them that is because oftentimes my moms will say, I don't have time to work out. I can't find the time to work out. I don't know when I'm going to work out. Everything's
Mm-hmm.
crazy at the house. I got all this stuff to do, plus my job, et cetera, et cetera. And I'll say, hey, have you talked to your spouse partner about your workout and what you'd like to get accomplished or when you'd like to schedule it during the course of the week? Because to give the guys a little bit of slack out there, the dads, oftentimes these moms will suffer without having a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
They'll say, "Well, no, I never really mentioned it to my husband. Have you talked to your kids about it? Whatever their age range is now.
Yeah.
Anthony, yours are a little bit too young to have the conversation with, but realistically, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and up, you can say, so mommy's got a schedule, just the same way you say you're going to be at work, or you
Right.
got a meeting, or you're going to be out of town, or you and dad are having a date night. Like oftentimes the moms don't discuss the time they need. In my case, I'm programming like 30-minute workouts or less, the time they need and the days that they need that time. So for the men, just being open and inviting that conversation, you'll have a breakthrough moment with your wife because she's probably going to try to just figure it out herself. And if you simply said, hey, I know you want to start working out, I wanted to talk to you about it and figure out what days and times are going to sort of work best for you. So
Mm-hmm.
those can be the days and times where maybe I do a project with the kids in the living room or
Right.
I take them somewhere, right? We can go to a playground or go out and have some ice cream or whatever. Just being willing to support the constraints on your wife's time, oh man, that'll put a big gold star on the hubby sheet for you guys, because the women that I encounter are much more likely to go off into a corner and try to figure it out
Mm-hmm.
than they are to come to you immediately and say, hey, here's what I want to get accomplished with my health. Here's the times and days that I need. Uh, let's have a quick chat about how we might accommodate. That almost never happens in my experience. And I'd be willing to guess, even in your case, Anthony, that your wife didn't bring that to you, immediately when she was trying to find that time out. Like I feel like something always breaks first, right? There's
Right.
there's an outburst that leads to the conversation, but it's rarely intentional. So that's like one of the first tips I would give. Just be willing to have the conversation about time.
Yeah, no, and yeah, you're definitely right on that one. Like for me, like I have a little bit more control over my schedule, and so like
Mm-hmm.
my workout usually isn't an issue. Like I can get it done early in the day, don't have to worry about it. For her, like a lot of times, she was working out in the evenings, or still does. And so she kind of feels guilty, like taking time, like she's with the kids all day long, right? And then she
Mm-hmm.
feels guilty not spending time with them in the evening. I was like, you've been with
Right.
them since 6:45 this morning, you know. And I was like,
Right.
and so I it's like, but and so like that's one thing I know. Like for me, like instead of just like, okay, well let's maybe do Tuesday. We got Tuesday night, we got Friday night. Like if I'm just like, all right, go work out. I got the you know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like when we first started doing that, the kids were like coming in the back room, checking to see what mom's not really giving. But
Yeah.
now they're just like, okay, mom's working out. You know, like last weekend she went for a run. And when she got home, my daughter went and put her shoes on and said, "I'm going for a run." You know what I mean? So it's like they
Nice.
understand this stuff. They understand
They get
what's
it.
what's going on. Like I had a client I was working with, and he was really struggling to get his workouts. Like he was getting one or two in, and I kind of, what's going on and stuff. And he said, well, he only had one kid here, and
Mm-hmm.
so he said, well, I feel my wife and I don't like to leave each other alone with a kid too long.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. It's your, it's your really. I'm not going to tell you how to do your really. And I was like,
Right.
but if you're gone for an hour, you feel kind of guilty. Take a half hour. Use
Right.
another half hour. You take the kid. You know what I mean? And I was like, we
Yep.
can problem solve here. And it's like a lot of the times, like you said though, like it's just having a conversation. Just
Yeah.
like when is this gonna when like if my wife's not gonna bring it up. My wife is
Right.
too kind of a person,
Mm-hmm.
to bring it up. In her mind, it's not worth. She wants to work out, but if it doesn't happen, she's not gonna say anything. So like that's on me. I know that's on me. Like
Yeah.
she needs me to take control of that. She needs me to, you know, like I love the Google Calendar. I
Yep.
put everything on my Google Calendar because it's like
Same.
I get notifications on my phone, like everything. Like I'm gonna forget. Like I have 1,000 sticky notes sitting here on my desk, and it's like I gotta have some sort of organization. I gotta remember. But yeah, I think
Right.
having a conversation, um, and like even if it is your spouse, like it can be uncomfortable at first, right?
Yeah.
But it always gets better.
It always gets better. Heck yeah, it can be uncomfortable, man. And I think that's why so many people avoid it. And also, again, for the dads out there in your listening audience, and you may already know this sort of instinctively, but um, society puts women in a position to feel guilty about anything other than helping everybody else that they care about.
Yeah,
Like, oh my God, you want to see a woman go through a guilt trip? Like, ask her to go have a spa day by herself. Well, I don't know. The kids need,
yeah,
and Maddie's got that project. Like, society raises daughters to feel guilty about not serving the people they care about. And it's so common for them to skip themselves over. Like, they're just going to leapfrog right over themselves. Like, they don't matter to them. Everyone else matters. So it would be stupid of me to say give permission, particularly in the modern era. I could get some more hate mail for that. That would be another mistake in my career of working with women. Um, but you know, that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, just let them know, hey, it's okay if you aren't in lock and step with these kids every single freaking second of the day. Like, take a little time for yourself. I can do this for a while. I'm their father, for goodness sakes, right? I can do this. Like, we can do
yeah,
something else. I can keep them occupied. I don't mind that. It's not babysitting because they're my kids, right?
exactly.
And some women just, they really need to hear that, man, because
Yeah,
that guilt trip thing is so strong in them. I don't get it, to be perfectly honest with you. It's not something that I understand implicitly, but again, I don't have children, and again, I'm not a woman. um, but they really sometimes need to have just a a cool, easy, understanding discussion about the fact that, hey, I don't want your health declining. I don't want you in a constant state of stress. Um, so, what can I do as your spouse, your partner, to help alleviate some of that? How can I put you in a position where you feel satisfied that the kids are taken care of, but you also know that you're going to be around for them and be around to meet your grandkids one day,
yeah,
because I don't want your health to decline because you're sending all your energy to everyone else. You need some of your own energy. Just saying that to your wife, fellas, to your partner, however your relationship works, girlfriend, if you call it that, um, that can be super, super helpful, man.
yeah, yeah. My you said just taking time, feeling guilty, taking time for yourself. Um, I might get in trouble for saying this, but
That's all right.
my
Let it out. This is a
my
safe space.
uh, my wife has never once, and I'm not joking when I say this, she has never once gone through a drive-through, but just to get something. And
Yeah.
so she's gone through a drive-through because I've asked her, pick pick
Right.
something up on the way home, or
Right.
she's and it's like, but she has never just gone to get something herself. She feels guilty for going, and I'm like,
Yes.
I I go to the gas station every day. You know,
Right.
it's like
Right.
I like it, and it's like, yeah, I think I think, it's just completely different. Like I don't understand it. I don't know. I'm not sure I'll
Right.
ever understand. You know what I mean? And it's like,
Right.
but I don't know if I have to. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like I
Right.
don't know if I have to in order to
Facts.
be supportive. To be
Yeah.
to have um, to be somebody that they can rely on too. And so
Right.
you're obviously, your clients are paying to work with you.
Yeah.
And some of those times, so a lot of time, like the number one objection I get when I'm talking to people, I got, I don't know how my spouse, like spousal objections, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You're already, to me, like for anybody hiring a coach, that's a huge step. I think
Yes.
that's, stepping out of your comfort zone.
Yes.
I think like you're on the right path. You may not get the world's greatest transformation right away, but the fact that you're putting yourself asking for help, I think that's huge. Now,
100%.
when like you just talked about how, like women in particular have more trouble asking for help, right? So
Hmm.
they have trouble asking, they need help. So how do they get to the point of coming to you, and then how, like, because I guarantee you, not every, not every client you've worked with, their husband has been on board. And so
100%.
how do you, I guess I don't know what I'm asking. I don't know what so
I
I'm
get
gonna let
it.
you just take that one.
No, I get what you're asking, man. You're saying like there are so many more barriers typically in westernized households
Mm-hmm.
where the brunt of the decision making is probably going to go through the mind of the male in the house. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could want it to be different, but the reality is that's a true thing. The
Yeah.
second problem that you have is, a wife, spouse, partner wanting to work with a man that
Right.
her husband doesn't know. These husbands, they don't know me from Adam, man.
Yeah.
So honey, you're saying you want to pay money to some guy that I don't know who only works with women? Oh, I
Yeah.
get that, honey. Let me tell you about this guy, right? Like
Right.
these are real barriers for me as a professional.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is, man, how do your clients sort of overcome all these real obstacles and perceived obstacles to
Mm-hmm.
even get to the point where you work together? And
Yeah.
and for me as a coach on this side of it, the number one thing for me has always been my reputation and my my state of being, right? Just being a stand-up human, man. Like people will feel like it's fake at first, but you can't fake that kind of thing for too long, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to be patient as a business person and let all of the people who interact with me come to their own understanding that this is a reasonable dude, right? Like he's
Mm-hmm.
okay, like he's on the level. Um, the other thing is telling that story that I always tell about how and why I got into this business in the first place is really important because it almost instantaneously allows another person, whether that person's a man or a woman, it almost instantaneously allows them to understand the depth of my why, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you, it sort of immediately takes you out of the space of uh, Deuce Bigelow, Mel Gigolo, and puts you in the space of this is a compassionate coach trying to make sure that one half of our population, women, live longer, healthier, more vibrant lives,
Mm-hmm.
which also translates to probably you having a more lively, vibrant, health filled relationship as a male with this woman that you've committed your life to. And the other thing for me has always been my content, right? Being very diligent about my content and trying to be as helpful as possible because if a woman mentions me to her spouse, and she says I'm online, I would expect that spouse to say, "Where? Well, what's his? What? Where is he online?" Right?
Mm-hmm.
or who is this guy? How did you find him? If they say Instagram or Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter, I would expect the male partner to go do some investigative digging. You
Yeah.
should do that. I expect you to do that. And what you're going to exhaust yourself trying to find the flaws in my personality, in my personhood, in my professionalism. Like they're just not going to be there, right? So it's important for coaches working in this space to have a background, demeanor, and understanding that brings comfort to male spouses to know this guy is obviously an expert.
Mm-hmm.
Second, he's obviously not a creep. Third, he's obviously a professional in the way that he conducts himself and how he interacts with women. And even still, you and I both know, Anthony, that some people are just not going to be able to hire us because there's an unsupportive spouse in the home,
Yeah.
or or there are some very real financial limitations, and
Right.
that's mostly it's not a very real financial limitation, but it definitely could happen. So having that good track record over time, man, putting 10 years in of being a decent human, it really does help sort of overcome that problem. But I've always imagined that it's more problematic for me working with wives and moms than it probably is you working with dads and husbands. Is that pretty? Is that a solid? I don't know. Is that a solid assumption?
Yeah, yeah, no, I mean, for the most part, and I think, kind of what you said there, like, I knew, so I've never told you this. Um, the reason I wanted to work with you is because I felt like I knew you. I felt like I
Mm-hmm.
knew you before I knew, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I had, obviously seen you online and stuff. I think you were hosting at the time. This would have been like 20, and the podcast came out before that, I think, but probably 2019, 2020, one of the
Mm-hmm.
original Online Trainer Academy you were interviewing like former client and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And
That
so I started,
success thing.
yeah, yeah. And so I started listening to that, and I felt like I knew. So I found your stuff online and started just
Yeah.
following him. And then when I started actually working with you, you were the same person. You know what I mean?
Same
Like you
person.
were the exact same person. And
Yeah.
like for me, like a lot of yeah, like you said, like um, most I've talked to in my time doing this, I've talked to one wife or one
Right.
spouse on the phone.
Right.
A client of mine said his wife, like most people say, I got to talk to my spouse. May or may not be true, but he said my wife has some questions because I
Yeah.
say I always tell him, if you want to bring him on the call, he brought her on the call. I
Yeah.
signed.
Yeah.
I ended up talking to her on the phone. He signed up that day. He was a great client. You know what I mean? And so it's
Yeah.
like it worked out. It worked out. But like most of the time, like my clientele, my dads don't typically,
Right.
need that permit. They may handle the finances and stuff. For you though, like you have three, four,
Uh,
five hoops to jump through, and
man.
but you said there like I've always felt like you're very genuine, and so if somebody found you online.
Hmm.
I've, like if my wife came, like you said, if my wife came to me and said I want work with this trainer, I'd be like, okay, awesome. Like, who are they? And then she told me it was a guy. I'd be like, okay, well, let's put on the brakes for a second. I'd look
Like
this
those
up and stuff.
cats.
But
those
maybe right, it shouldn't. Like if she told me she wanted to work, with a woman, I would still look them up.
Yeah.
But my research wouldn't be as as
Yeah.
deep as it. But I think like and maybe I'm wrong, but I think that makes you a better coach.
Oh yeah.
I think that makes you have to be. You know what I mean? And so I
Yes.
think like those that work with you, like they know, like they already
Yes.
know, like when they're hiring you, they know what you're about. There's no surprises, right?
Yes. Yes. Um, scrutiny is not a problem for professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, the more the more you know your business, the more you invite scrutiny, right? I want people to ask me all the questions. I want people to ask me all the whys because I'm not trying to pull a fast one on anybody. The
Right.
same with the science, man. You've got clients that want to ask you questions. Hey, Anthony, I want to apologize, man. It's not that I don't believe you, but why are we doing this again? And you're like,
Yeah.
yes, I get to use some of these thousands of
Yeah.
dollars worth of education I've got, and for once I get to spew it all out to a client because I've been dying for somebody to ask me this question because I
Yeah.
just studied this 6 months ago. So, you know, excellent people in their field invite and expect a level of scrutiny. And like you said,
Mhm.
it just makes you a better coach, man.
Right.
Like I want people asking me all the questions, and it's funny what you said. You maybe once ever somebody's had to get their wife on the phone, and that's like 5 times every week for me that a husband has to get on the
Yeah.
phone, man. Like
Yeah.
that's my life, bro. And I get it, But like you said, if if your wife says she's going to work with a trainer, it's a lady, the investigation is more inquisitive, right?
Mhm.
Just seeing, like, make sure this person isn't, that crazy, right? But if they want to work with a man, the investigation is more protective, right?
Right.
Let me make sure this person doesn't have some insidious, plot, and make sure that they're not going to do harm to my spouse in any way. So, um, that's actually been one of the advantages for me in this space because I know my stuff, number one. And
Mhm.
number two, I got nothing to hide. So
Right.
I feel comfortable in the space knowing that I'm going to be under the microscope to a certain extent. And man, when you know what you're doing and it's genuine, man, you welcome that
Yeah.
for sure. That's a great point, man. Good question, too.
Yeah. And I think it all comes back to communication, right?
Yeah.
I think like if like for me, I have a great relationship with my wife. So she told me she wanted to work with this coach, and it was a male. I'd be like, okay, well let's what like. But if you didn't have, if you weren't already having those tough conversations, if you weren't already, having the, and all of a sudden your spouse came to you and said, I want to
Oh,
work with
yeah.
this coach. It's a guy like that's. I mean,
It's a red
I
flag for
I
sure.
can't imagine how that's gonna. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
it's like I think it all kind of comes to that. It's just like, and like obviously like I'm not a therapist, right? I'm not going to
Right.
tell somebody how to run, like how you run your marriage is like that's
Your
none of my
business.
business, right? And
Yeah.
but I feel like there's common, there's common, like just dealing with people in general,
Yeah.
just like communication, and just like asking a lot of times, like I have some clients who who will tell me like uh dads in general not great at opening up at times. So I
Right.
mean, so it's like
Right.
that. For you, just being having to be kind of a stand-up guy helps you a lot, being a great coach. For me, I have to get really great at digging deep. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, or nobody ever talks to me, right? And so it's
Yeah.
like I think
Yes.
just like that's one thing I really love. Like I doing calls like Zoom. I do Zoom calls with my clients and just getting
Uh huh.
getting to know them. I
Right.
had a client tell me once. He said, every time, because we talk about like spousal support, your wife supporting you, and I
Hmm.
said, like he said, I said, like, well, just like, do you feel like she does support you? And he kind of hesitated, and he said, not really. He said every time I like start to get in great shape,
Hmm.
I feel like that's when she wants to order pizza. And
Yeah.
it's just like, and so he starts telling me all that, we kind of going, and he was almost like, you could tell I was kind of choking him up a little bit. Like,
Yeah.
and I asked
Absolutely.
him, I said, like, have you like shared some of the things like with me, or with your
Yeah.
wife as you have me? And he was like, no,
Yeah.
and it's just like and usually when I do enrollment calls with clients, that's one of the things, like, how much support do you have, because I'm not going
Yes.
to be there forever, right? And like most of the times they're always like, no, I've never told my wife any of this before. And I was like, I think
Yeah.
that's where we start. that
Yeah.
that's that just that's where, like, I can work with you for 12 weeks, I can work with you for 12 years, but if you're
Yeah.
not willing to have the that support in your household, you're always gonna kind of revert back to where you were.
Man, as professional coaches, and this is important, it, especially in the context of this conversation we're having. Like, how can you be supportive as a male for your female partner, spouse?
Mhm.
You know, we know as professional coaches, and any professional coach out there worth their salt will tell you how big a role environment plays in your ability to change behavior.
Yeah.
Like it's huge, man. Uh, it's probably bigger than the actual science of exercise and the science of nutrition, man. If the environment's jacked up, your chances are jacked up. Like
Yeah.
it's just the way it is, man. Um, so, gentlemen out there listening, like just don't be that guy, right? Don't be the. Chances are, more than likely, a key reason why your wife wants to improve her health, whether it's her deep health, the internal stuff, blood pressure, diabetes, sugar, blah, 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 lipids, triglycerides, or whether it's just her aesthetic health, chances are one of the deepest reasons why is to connect better with you, gentlemen.
Mm.
Take that from a man who hears all types of stories. I have the opposite problem of Anthony with clients. I can't get them to not share. So I feel like I'm in a therapist chair most of the days that I'm working with clients. But I can tell you from those conversations, so much of their desire to improve their health tracks back to having a better relationship with you. It's
Mm.
being done so you have a happier wife, happier life, a
Yeah.
more adventurous life. I won't talk too much about that, about Chicka Wow Wow, and that you have just a better existence. Like all these women are out here uh, trying to get coached, trying to get healthier, so they can just be the most awesome partner you've ever had, gentlemen. That's probably 75 or 80%
Mhm.
of the why right there. And probably actually the other 20 is probably it might be flip flop. It might be 80% children and then 20% you guys. But in any case,
Yeah.
between you and the kids, that's the deep why that most of these women are working. It's not so they can get separated from you. It's not because they met Paulo Villanueva on the beach in Cancun. Like it's because they're trying to be the best version of them to make the best version of life with you possible. So
Mm.
just don't be the guy that interrupts that, man. You're shooting yourself in the foot, acting like a jackass. Don't do that.
Yeah.
That's my TED talk for the day. Thank you.
Yeah. No, I think those are, I think, it's not something you think about a lot. Like, why do they want to work out? Why are they, why do people go shopping when they're stressed? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's not because they want to buy a bunch of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
there's always typically a reason behind the reason.
one
And
hundred percent.
like I said, I'll speak for dads. I'll speak for guys here. We're not great at always finding that
Yeah,
reason. And so I think, like for me, like I want support from my wife. I need support from my wife, but she needs it just as much, if not more, from me. And that's an area,
absolutely.
like I said, I still am not always great at. Like when I wake up in the morning, like my first thought is like what I need to get done, right? And so like I need to
Yeah,
have like uh
same.
this hour to myself, you know what I mean? And it's like I think just, even like taking a couple minutes out of your day, out of your morning, and figuring out like how can I be a little bit more supportive today? How can I be a little bit more helpful? It's gonna like
Yes.
not only improve your marriage, but it'll like when you're, I think you said it earlier, so people, I don't like that. Not my favorite saying in the world, the happy wife, happy life thing, but
Right.
you can't beat around it. It's there's
I
a lot of
mean,
there's a lot of truth to it, because
it's a lot of truth.
typically if she's happy, things are going right, you're probably being a good husband, right?
Yeah, you're probably doing pretty well with life and relationships. And you should mean, you don't want to, be an idiot about her being happy. Or, don't take it too far. I mean, it's not like you can make her too happy, but we're saying within reason. You're
Right.
not gonna, like let her hit you in the head because it makes her happy or anything like that. However, you know, people people need to feel seen, um, and one of the things that I know from working with women is that there are two incidences that often lead women to feel less seen.
Mhm.
One is motherhood, right?
Yeah.
You go from a woman to being a mom, right?
Yeah.
And the other is, the aging process, particularly 40ish plus perimenopause. women have expressed to me often how those are the ages of invisibility for them
Yeah.
or their perception of it. So, man, you can get a lot of kudos, get a lot of cool points by just reaching out through awareness of your female partner, your woman partner, um, and having an understanding or at least an interest in what her day is like or has been like or is going to be like and just the normal things that she's going through. um,
Mhm.
and that it goes a long way.
Yeah, yeah, and I just having a genuine interest in people, in general, I
Yeah,
think serves you well. As you like, you can allude a lot of your success to. You know what I mean? You've taken the time out to learn about them, and to be honest, like probably know a lot more about them than a lot of husbands do, right? And
yeah,
it's like,
yeah,
but yeah, Ren, I appreciate you coming on. I know we could probably continue to go for a long time here. It's great to have you here. Somebody like I said at the beginning, somebody I've looked up to a lot, somebody who I've learned a lot from, and so I appreciate you coming on. We're definitely gonna have to have you on again sometime. But where can people find you at online?
oh man, I made it so easy that even a dad could do it. On the on Instagram, I'm gonna get crap for that one. On Instagram, it's at Fitness Jones Training,
Fitness
Fitness
Jones
Jones
Training.
Training with the little at sign before it. On Facebook, it's Fitness Jones Training, and my website is www.fitnessjonestraining.com. See, you guys thought I was lying, but I did make it
Fit,
so easy.
Fitness
Even a
Jones
man
Training.
can do it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm easy to find, man. I'm everywhere. I'm all over the place.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I will get all those links and everything, and I'll put them in the show notes. But before I let you go, though, for those of you that don't know, Ren, you live in Charlotte still, right?
Yeah, I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte, North Carolina. So the NFL draft is tonight.
Yes, number
I'm
one
from.
pick.
I'm wearing my Chiefs sweat. The draft is in Kansas City.
It
The
is
Panthers. The Panthers have the
number one
number
pick.
one pick. So
Number
who are they
one.
taking?
I think they take Bryce, man. Um,
Okay.
I think, and I may actually prefer Stroud just because of
Mhm.
physicality. Um, but compared to, if I'm comparing to PJ Walker, if I'm comparing to Andy Dalton, if I'm comparing to who else did we have in there? Matt Corral, who never saw the field. Like either one of those top two quarterbacks uh, it's a new era in Charlotte. So I'm okay with either one. I'm not invested in either one particularly, but I will definitely be watching the draft.
Yeah.
And though I do not hate the Kansas City Chiefs, they are they're a source of angst for me because your quarterback's just literally too good. Like it's unnatural, and I don't like it. I just want to put that out there. It's unnatural, and I don't like how good he is. And I want some of whatever they gave him when that knee went south, because
Yeah.
that juice has got to be delicious. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that was like Welch's or it was like a cran grape or something that they gave him. But what a juicy juice, because I know that's 100% juice. I don't know what it was, man, but whatever they gave him at halftime, I want some of that in my bowl every single morning of the year. I'll put my cereal in that juice, the P Mahomes juice, and I like he's phenomenal in the Super Bowl, man. That I don't want to expand on it too much because I can talk about it forever. But that kid's amazing, man. He's excellent. He is top notch, cream of the crop. He's Montana esque. I mean that kid's going to go down as a legend, man. If he only played 2 more years in the league, legend, legend.
Yeah.
Not I could talk more about Kelsey too and other that, but I digress. I'm not going to speak kindly of your team for too long a period of time because it goes against everything I believe. So I'm gonna say, go Panthers, keep pounding. That's what I'm gonna
Yeah.
say.
I'm not gonna apologize too much because I spent
Don't.
the majority of my life with some bad. I'm like I feel like we seems like a great guy, great person to lead a franchise, and my yeah. I went my whole life without a Super Bowl. My
Suffered a long
son
time,
has
man.
watched. My son is 4. He's watched the Chiefs in 3 Super Bowls. All of
Right.
my daughter is 2. She's seen
Right.
2, and my my other daughter is 4 months, and she's seen a Super Bowl. And so like this is they can never lose, right?
Oh man, it's biblical, man. Like you
Yeah.
suffered all your life, so your children can have blessings
That's
overflowing.
right. That's right.
There's it sounds like a Job verse to me. I'm not sure, but oh, man, good on it. Good for them, man. They deserved it.
Yeah.
Blessed are the children.
Yeah. But thanks again Ren, for coming on. I know you got to run. Like I said, I appreciate you being here, and we'll definitely have to have you on for another episode.
Thanks for having me, man. It's good talk. I'll talk to you soon, brother.
Awesome, man. That concludes this episode of the Fatherhood Fitness Podcast. Thank you for those of you who took time out of your busy schedules to listen. If you have any questions or comments or an idea for a topic for a future episode, please feel free to reach out, and I'd love to hear from you.